It's me, Ellie Krug with Ellie 2.0 Radio and Podcast. How are you? I am thrilled. I am thrilled to be back after a couple of weeks of just Ellie, best of Ellie. This is a fresh show, and I am, as I said, thrilled to be talking to you. And as always, we have a great show. The big interview is with Courtney Johnson, who will talk about being the mayor of a small town in Minnesota. She also happens to be a friend of mine. And in my C block, I will share about my work as an idealist, as I always do. We'll see how much time I have to do for that, because we may not have much time. But if we have enough time, I'm going to tell you a story about the universe speaking to me. Okay, but here we are in the A block. And let us begin with this week's featured idealist. It's two men. And there's a story here because it's two men from opposite political camps who have come together to talk about the need to get past political differences. Yes, I'm talking about former Illinois congressman and talk show host Joe Walsh, okay? And about Fred Guttenberg, who became a staunch, outspoken advocate against gun violence following the horrible murder of his daughter Jaime and many other students and some educators in Parkland, Florida in February of 2018. And in a moment, I'm going to play a somewhat lengthy clip with the two men interacting. But first, let me give you a little bit of the backstory. Now, Joe Walsh served only one term in Congress representing the 8th District in Illinois. He did that from 2011 to 2013. While in Congress, he was aligned with the Tea Party, and he was no fan of Barack Obama and his policies. And then after his district was redistricted, reconstituted, Walsh decided that he was not going to run for Congress again, so he was only a one-term congressperson. And then he went on to Chicago to become a radio host, but he was kind of a shock jock, and he made a lot of comments and statements that were controversial and some with racist overtones. And when Donald Trump ran for president in 2016, Walsh jumped on the Trump bandwagon, like so many other people. However, surprisingly, and this is part of the story, Walsh soured on Trump. He did. And by 2020, Walsh started a very short-lived campaign for the Republican presidential nomination, So Walsh is like, hey, I'm going to try and be president. Now, he dropped out, of course, and then Walsh changed his party affiliation from Republican to Independent, and he went back to being a radio and podcast host. Fred Guttenberg is a real estate agent and auto broker in Parkland, Florida. And immediately after his daughter Jaime's murder, as a way of honoring her, and I'm certain as a way of dealing with the tragedy, Fred Guttenberg dedicated his life to ending gun violence. He became a vocal opponent of the National Rifle Association. In fact, I am sure if you're an MSNBC viewer like I am, I'm sure you have seen Fred Guttenberg on MSNBC. He's also been on CNN. And he was, he's gone after the National Rifle Association, and he has tangled with various Republican elected officials over guns, He was invited to attend Donald Trump's 2020 State of the Union address, where Fred Guttenberg started shouting at Trump during the address, and he was asked to leave. So you have two men here of political polar opposite ends, That wasn't a very good sentence, Ellie, but you get what I'm talking about. And in fact, for 3 years, Joe Walsh and Fred Guttenberg attacked each other on social media. It appeared that they hated each other. And then something happened to change that. Yeah. And so now, in a second, my lovely producer, Brett, is going to play a clip. It's a clip from these two men, Walsh and Guttenberg, are going across the country on a speaking tour titled Two Dads Defending Democracy. That's their speaking tour, They've gone to a number of different colleges' campuses, and in a moment, Brett is going to play a clip from just last month. I think it was September 24th, so we're barely a month away, where Walsh and Guttenberg were interviewed at the Gerald Ford School of Public Policy in Ann Arbor. You're going, when you hear the clip, you're going to first hear the voice of the moderator, and then you're going to hear Walsh speak and then Guttenberg speak. And as I said, the clip is a bit long. It's over 5 minutes. But I think that you will appreciate why I'm doing this by the time the clip is over, okay? And so when the clip is done, I'll come back and just give you a little bit of commentary, all right? Okay, Brett, go ahead and play the clip.
So, as the kind of background for where we are today, is that these two were on the opposite side of one of the most important debates in American politics, which was gun violence. And on the opposite side, and now they are together. And I want you guys to tell me, how did that all start? I don't know which one of you starts this usually.
Well, Fred usually does, so I'm going to.
Oh, you're going to? Okay.
I'm going to be very brief and start, and then I'll let Fred start, because I want to provide context. For the next hour and a half, as long as you're going to be here, he and I are going to seem like best friends. And we're gonna smile and hit each other and pat each other on the back, and it's all roses and creams. We hated on each other only 5 years ago. We went after each other in ugly personal terms like cats and dogs on the issue of guns primarily, but anything, on TV and social media. That's all I'm going to say now, and then I'm going to turn it over to someone who's now my friend. But you need to know that. When we do these talks at college campuses all around the country, and again, it's great. Oh, look at these two. They disagreed on guns, and now they're best friends. You need to know the first part of that. We were where I think most of America is today. We went after each other in hateful, ugly ways about an issue. And that's what too much of us are doing now. But always remember that as you watch us today. Start.
Thank you. So, as was noted, February 14th, 2018, my daughter, Jaime, was murdered in the Parkland shooting. And following her murder, for the first 24 hours, it didn't hit me that it was gun violence. And my nephew's in the room back there, and he may remember this. The next night, I went to speak at a vigil in Parkland. And when I was there and speaking and seeing the audience, it hit me, gun violence. And I'll never forget walking into my house that night and saying to my family and anyone else who would listen to me, I'm going to break the gun lobby. That became my mission. It became my purpose. And as part of that, and by the way, everyone in my family from that moment forward wanted to tell me how to do it. They all wanted to tell me what I needed to do, give me the strategy, give me the lessons, and I told them all just to leave me alone. I'm doing this my way. Because part of what I wanted to do was take on all the lunatics like Joe. And I was never going to stop. I was going to be relentless. But I also wanted to talk to any human being, whether they were on my side or not, who wanted to have a meaningful conversation on how to do it. For the first few years, he and I did not have any meaningful conversations, and we went at each other on social media. Back and forth, names and this and the other thing. And then 3 years ago, I started this initiative called Dads for Gun Safety, just before Father's Day that year. And the reason I was starting it was moms, and I see plenty of moms in here, you all have been amazing on this issue. Kids, you guys have been great. To the dads in the room, not so much. And I wanted to engage dads, and I wanted to engage gun owners to be a part of the idea of reducing gun violence. And so I started this initiative. I went on social media about it. He at first started attacking me for it and saying all of this stuff. And then one day he replies, we probably disagree on everything you want to do, but I respect the hell out of what you're trying to do. And that was it. From that point forward, our whole approach to each other on social media started to change. We actually started talking, typing, but
Can I interrupt?
yes.
Can I interrupt?
Yeah.
Now we're such good friends, we interrupt each other. It was at this point where, as I began my metamorphosis from a political conservative asshole to just a political conservative, and the gun issue has always been a big issue for me, the Second Amendment. I reached out at this point privately to the 6 most well-known gun safety activists. And I said, hi, it's Joe Walsh. I'd love to sit down with you privately and try to have a reasonable conversation about guns. 5 of the 6 gave me the middle finger and told me to get lost, privately. He was the only guy who didn't give me the middle finger and said, we'll talk.
Okay. Thanks for listening to that long clip. I hope you found it of value. I am a little choked up, actually, over it. Excuse me. I'm choked up because it's proof. It literally is proof that we can get past this stuff. That we can. That we can get past the divide. That we can cross the divide. That we can come and see each other as humans. You know, and that I just, you know, it's about being wrong about people. The problem is that we cannot figure that out unless we're willing to talk to people, like humans, talk one-on-one. And I've just got to tell you, okay, these guys couldn't have been farther from each other, and now they're friends. I mean, you know, maybe even best friends. I don't know. But I wanted to share this with you, okay, because both of them are idealists. They are. And maybe they would never even declare themselves that. I don't know. Maybe Guttenberg would. I don't know if Walsh would. I don't know. It doesn't matter. They are. They're making a positive difference in this world, okay, because they're modeling what it means to get past the divide, to cross it, to jump it, whatever metaphor you want to use. And so I hope you found that of value, because I am going to tell you, we need to be like those guys a whole lot more than what we're doing at present. All right. Okay. Well, on that note, we're going to go. And when we come back, we're going to be speaking to Courtney Johnson, mayor of Carver, Minnesota. You're going to love Courtney. And then after that, we'll do my C Block. You're listening to me, Ellie Krug. If you like what you hear, visit my website at Ellie Krug. Sign up for my newsletter, The Ripple. You can find out how you can do that on my website. I'd love to have you on there. All right, take care. We'll be back in a sec. And we're back. Ellie Krug on Ellie 2.0 Radio. So check out Joe Walsh and Fred Guttenberg and make sure that, that you follow them and what they're trying to do for America. And it's time now for the big interview with somebody else who's doing something for a small slice of America. I have Courtney Johnson here with me. Courtney is the mayor of Little Carver, Minnesota. Okay, Courtney, welcome to Ellie 2.0 Radio.
Thanks, Ellie, for having me. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, I'm thrilled to have you here. Now, first of all, we need to let everyone know that you and I are friends, okay? So we get together every once in a while for a couple glasses of wine and some laughing and all that jazz. But I wanted to have you on the show for a couple of reasons. One is, first, you're a pretty dynamic person who I think is kind of cool. But secondly, you are a woman mayor, in a small town in Minnesota. And so let's begin first. Okay, just give us a little bit of your background because you're not native to Minnesota. You are a Wisconsinite, right?
I'm a Minnesotan now through and through, but yeah, you're right. I was born and raised in southeastern Wisconsin, Grafton, Wisconsin, to be exact. For those who are wondering, to this day, I still bleed green and gold. So on Sunday afternoons, you will find me rooting for the Packers, or whoever is playing against the Bears.
Okay.
Grew up in southeastern Wisconsin, born and raised there, went to the same school, stayed in the same school district, and then decided to go to St. Cloud State for college because everybody that I went to high school with went to Madison. And my high school experience wasn't terrible, but it wasn't something that I wanted to repeat in my college years. So really came into my own and kind of loved Minnesota, put down roots in Minnesota. 18-year-old Courtney didn't realize how significant that decision to go away and to go to Minnesota for college would be. But here I am just a few short years later, and I'm still in Minnesota.
Well, good for you. That's great. And you ended up, of all places, living in Carver, Minnesota, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about Carver so we have some idea.
Yeah. So, what drew me to Carver? My first home was in downtown St. Paul. I bought a condo down there. It was affordable. It was a cool neighborhood. Really happy. And then when the time came and my partner and I wanted to purchase a home, we wanted something with a yard so that we could do yard work and maybe to some extent even like home maintenance type stuff. And we landed on kind of Carver and the Southwest Metro because it reminded both of us of the smaller communities where we grew up in. The Grafton that I grew up in was probably about the same size of that Carver is today, a little bit off the beaten path, a little bit out of the hustle and bustle of the city, but still only about a 20, 30-minute drive into downtown Milwaukee with all the amenities that are available of a larger city like that. And Zach grew up in Kentwood, Michigan, which again was just a little bit outside Grand Rapids and kind of same deal, smaller town, amenities not far away, but know all your neighbors, opportunity to get involved in the community. And it was really that small town feeling that drew me to Carver. That, and I'd be lying if I didn't say it wasn't that we could get way more home here than if we were kind of a little bit further in and within the 494 ring.
Yeah, and we should, note that Carver is a population of about 5,000 people?
7,000.
Oh, sorry. There you go. Look at that. Okay. And it is in Carver County, so, it's the, namesake for the county.
Sure.
And also it is, we should also note that it's within my school district. I'm on the school board, and so let's make sure that that's clear. But it has a lovely downtown that borders the Minnesota River.
Yep.
And it also has a lot of, housing developments. Okay, right?
Yeah, all of that is true. So Carver's history, if you want a little history lesson, is actually within that Minnesota River. Back in the day when there was steamboat travel from St. Paul to destinations outside of the city from St. Paul, Carver was the last stop along the Minnesota River before the channel became unnavigable because of the rapids. So that's how Carver kind of really got put on the map. And the city of Carver is older than the state of Minnesota itself. We kind of got our origins in 1852, a couple of years before Minnesota gained its statehood. It's that same river that in summers like we just experienced that gives me a little bit of heartburn when it floods. The summer we beat the 1965 record by just a hair of the flooding. But we also are rapidly growing. In the last probably 20 years, 212 was expanded to come all the way out to Carver. And Carver for a long time, for decades, sat at a population of about 1,200 people. And then once 212 opened up, I think it was right around 2007 is when that happened. And it became 2 lanes each way, all the way out to Carver. And now it's since expanded and goes all the way out to Cologne. And then eventually the next project will go all the way to the county line. But with that, people discovered Carver and our population has exploded. And folks who haven't been to Carver in a while say, my goodness, the homes. My goodness, you have a Quick Trip now. My goodness, all the development up on the hill, and we have been growing.
You know, you really do sound like the mayor of a small town. I just want to let you know that, okay? And it's great. I mean,
He's on brand.
All right, but but there are a couple of things that I really want to get into. One is, you started volunteering in the community after you moved to Carver, which I thought was great. But why did you get into politics? Okay, so that's the first question. And then the second question is, how are those politics different, in Carver, small town Minnesota, compared to national politics that, we're getting, ad nauseum right at the moment?
Yeah, so I'm going to address the first question, how did I get into politics? And then I might forget the next one, and you'll have to remind me, but I know you will. How did I get into politics? For me, it truly was from just a space of wanting to get involved. I moved to Carver so that I could get involved in my community. I don't have like a dream map in my kitchen of like, here's where I'm going to be in 2020. Here's where I'm going to be in 2025. Like, I am not professionally or politically, I am not a climber. I don't have an end goal. I will never tell you, like, Ellie, I'm thinking someday I'm going to run for president. You will not hear that come from me. So It really, really, really came from a place of wanting to be involved in my community. The longer story is that the mayor before me vacated a council term when he was elected. They appointed somebody. I applied. I was one of 7 people who applied. It was down to me and another individual as kind of the finalists, and there was a tie vote between the two of us. He was appointed. He was a former mayor and way, way, way more qualified. 2 years later, I decided to run for city council, where the top 2 vote getters out of 6 or 7 people who ran, I think it was 6 people ran, got elected. I was the second highest vote getter, with a difference of 13 votes between me and the next highest vote getter.
All right.
2 years later, the mayor who created that vacancy on council that originally kind of got me interested decided not to seek re-election. And I heard from my community like, hey, I hear you're running for mayor. And my response initially was, that's really great. I am not running. And then those conversations evolved to, would you consider running for mayor? And some really influential folks who I thought very highly of made me start thinking like, sure, why don't I do it? And I won that election by, I think it was 19 votes. The overwhelming theme here is people vote. Like, people vote, people, if you think that your vote doesn't matter. I won 2 elections with a difference of less than 20 votes. And like, granted, it's the city of Carver, probably 5,000 people at the time of that. If there are 3,000 voters, I'm pulling numbers out of thin air. I don't know that any of them are true or even spot on. But your vote matters. Yeah. And then 2 years ago, I ran for re-election and got 70% of the vote in my re-election. So,
there you go. See,
but again, coming initially from just a place of really wanting to get involved. Carver is like at this growth phase, and being able to guide the direction of where we go is something that I really take really, really seriously and pride myself on.
Oh, I love it. I love it. All right. Well, and it's not as unusual as it was 30 years ago, but you're a woman mayor of a small town. And how do you, now I'm just going to throw that one at you. How do you think that influences how people interact with you and how effective you think you may better be as a woman compared to, men that were in the role that you had?
Yeah, for me, it's really honestly never been like, I'm doing a better job and I'm killing this because I'm a woman. I think that I'll work harder than anybody else in this role. I try to, not only respond to folks who reach out via email or on Facebook or attend public events so that folks So not only can I participate because they're fun, but also so the folks have the opportunity to tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, what's going on here? Or I saw this, or there's shovels in the ground over there. What's coming over here? So I want to check all the boxes, and I want to make sure that during the snapshot in time while I sit in this seat that I'm doing as much as I can. I've definitely seen the transition. I am now in my end of my 6th year as being mayor. And, you know, there's a really tight group of Carver County mayors. I think out of the, what would it be, 11 mayors in Carver County, I think 6 of us are female.
I'm loving it.
So
yeah, I mean, where I live in Victoria, for sure. Yeah.
Yep. And of Eastern Carver County, 3 out of the 4 are women. Chanhassen, Victoria, and Carver are female. That's going to be changing potentially on November 5th, and we'll see kind of how that pendulum swings. But it's definitely been a change in the 6 years that I've held this seat of seeing more women just in general get into public service. It's also, you know, it hasn't been without its awkward times. The first time I went to the state capitol as mayor, the individual who I was traveling with from city staff said, I need to tell you something that I want to make you aware of. I'm just worried about something's going to happen. And he said, you know, I see the scenario in my head where I say to somebody like, oh yeah, I'd like to introduce you to the mayor. You're standing right next to me. And they go, oh yeah. Where is he? You know, And it's those kinds of situations that kind of make me take a step back. You know, ever since I've been in college, I was really involved in the campus television station, and I was part of the technical crew with the graphics individuals and the technical director and the camera folks, which skewed largely male, almost predominantly male. And there were times where I would be in the control room and take a look around, and I'm the only woman. So while this situation isn't new to me, it's not to say that even still in 2024, there aren't still those instances of like, ooh, all right, we need a little bit more representation in this room.
Right. No, thank you for that. And thanks for the vulnerability in speaking about that. And I'm watching our time here. How do you think it's different in small town Carver in terms of, you know, the politics and the way people treat each other compared to, you know, all that we're hearing right now on the national level?
Yeah. You know, I think we have the same challenges. I think that, paying bills and seeing taxes go up cause the same heartburn if you're living in small town Carver at 7,000 people, small town, you know, X, Y, or Z in greater Minnesota, or anywhere within the 494, 694 beltline, you know, of Hopkins, Minneapolis, really anywhere. I think all those issues continue to ring true. And folks would definitely prefer to not have to pay more than they have to for anything.
Oh, yeah.
I think civility is also a big challenge in our communities. I personally have left the community Facebook page that is resident run for the city of Carver because it's just not a good place for me and for my mental health. And I feel like our residents have probably at least 3 or 4, maybe a half a dozen other options of connecting with me rather than this public forum where folks just quite simply can very easily get quite nasty. And I'm seeing a little bit of that too on my mayor's Facebook page with one individual who continues to perhaps not share the most positive feedback.
There's always one, Courtney. There's always one, you know?
Yeah. And it's a bummer. And I've tried to share with that individual, like, listen, point taken. You don't like me, but I just want to let you know, like, pro tip, there are other folks who are reading this and are forming opinions of you that probably doesn't shed a positive light on you and your personality and you as an individual. Haven't gotten any traction there, but
okay.
We'll see.
Yeah, but I can hear the pain in your voice about it, and I'm sorry that you're going through that. My impression, because I live in small town Victoria, is that if you can get people out of the echo chambers, okay, get them away from, whatever. I mean, most people just seem to be incredibly decent to Ellie Krug, and I think that we forget about the human connection, beyond the Facebooks and beyond the Twitters and all that stuff.
Yeah, and that's always my first preference. And when folks email me, or even when they make a comment that I'll respond to on my Facebook page, and not even talking about negative, I will, respond. And then generally, I would love to take things face to face, or even a phone call, because I think email. So professionally, I'm a communicator. I'm an independent communications consultant. And with that, I recognize especially how communications can be tricky. I can send you an email and think that I'm being nice and kind and providing feedback, but you might read it with me kind of having a gruffness in my tone.
Right.
So I think that sometimes even email and certainly social media can be tricky. So it would always be my absolute first preference to meet face to face. And I try to make myself available to folks for that. I have quarterly office hours, again, show up at events, and emails will always say, like, if this doesn't answer your questions or if I'm missing anything, let's schedule a time where we can talk, either over a cup of coffee or a phone call, and just kind of talk this through if I'm not answering all your questions.
Well, and you have a lovely coffee shop in Carver, I would note.
2 of them now.
Oh my goodness. I'll have to try the new one. Okay.
You do.
Well, all right. So, Courtney, where we are right now in America, we've got, people going off in a whole lot of different directions. But you've got your nose to the grindstone, so to speak. You are day in and day out trying to do your best for your small town, your small community. And by the way, I think you are doing a great job based on what I hear from people, okay?
Thank you.
But, this show is about idealism, and it's about people working to try and make the world better. It is, in a variety of ways. I mean, I've had everybody from, a man, a black man who talks Ku Klux Klan members out of their robes and, to quitting the Klan to, I've had, a whole lot of different kinds of idealists. Yeah. So the question I've got for you is, do you think you're an idealist, okay? Do you think you're somebody trying to make a positive difference in the world? And if so, how did you get there? What got you the way that you are?
Yeah. So, a few things. And I think that maybe this explanation might help with that. You talk about me as being a politician, and I have never thought of myself as a politician. I think, the mayor of Chaska, Mark Winchittle, who I love to death and love to give him a hard time. He's my absolute favorite target. Has a really great quote, which if you knew our relationship, you know how much I hate giving him credit for smart things. But he said, we're not politicians. We're mayors. We get stuff done. And that really resonated with me. And I think that kind of also speaks to being an idealist. I really don't tend to put myself into too many boxes. So, when we were kind of doing the pre-interview for this, I said, like, what does that mean to you? Help me understand. And I think it absolutely fits wanting to make the world better, assuming positive intent, wanting the best for everybody. Yeah, I absolutely check those boxes. And if that's what being an idealist is, then yes. I think I have always been really interested in the world. I'm a former exchange student. I spent the summer in Paraguay when I was in high school. I'm really interested in learning about folks who are different than me or who have different lived experiences.
Respectful curiosity. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, all of that are probably components of being an idealist. And so, Yeah, I want to make the world a better place, like really in this role. And again, in this seat that I am so privileged that the folks of Carver have entrusted me with. I really want to do no harm. So I want to set Carver up, for appropriate growth and development and make sure that we have the infrastructure to support those kinds of things and all that kind of wonky, nerdy city stuff that I love. But really like doing no harm and just making sure that the city of Carver is in a better place than when I was first elected.
Well, Courtney, they're lucky to have you. Okay. I'm just saying. Okay.
Thank you.
And I love your attitude. I mean, you're just so forward thinking, and it seems to me that you understand the big picture about things. But this idealism thing is, it's a day in and day out kind of thing. It's not that you just be an idealist like once a year kind of thing. And it seems to me that you're living it. And so I'm just really thankful to call you a friend. But I'm also thankful that you're leading, the community that lives, that's right next to where I live. And I really look forward to seeing what more you and your team at City Hall get to accomplish for Carver, Minnesota.
Thank you, Ellie. Your kindness, your friendship means a great deal to me. And I think that you are the bee's knees as well, and appreciate what you do. I think in your role as an elected leader, and especially on the school board, and I think I've said this to you before, is exponentially harder than anything I do at the city level. So I appreciate everything that you do for our community as well.
Thanks. It's not a contest, but I appreciate that. I really do. Okay. Well, Courtney, thanks so very much for being on Ellie 2.0 Radio. We really appreciate it. And just keep up the good work, okay?
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Have a great weekend.
You're welcome. Okay, everyone. That's Courtney Johnson from Carver, Minnesota. I'm thrilled that she was able to be here. And check out Carver, Minnesota. Go to your map, see where it is, and maybe even Google Carver, Minnesota, and see some of the pictures of this lovely, lovely town. All right, when we come back, we'll do the C Block, where I'll talk about my work as an idealist. I'll be back in a second. You're listening to me, Ellie Krug, on AM 950. We'll be back in a sec. And we're back. Ellie Krug on Ellie 2.0 Radio Podcast. All right, Courtney Johnson, lovely human, okay? And as Brett said during the break, she's the kind of person you want to be your mayor, okay? She's wonky, her own admission. She's just, focused on the community. And so, every community should be lucky enough to have a Courtney Johnson as its mayor. So there you go. All right, C Block, I got a little bit of time. All right, I'm going to tell you a quick story about the universe speaking to me. So I haven't been here for 2 weeks. I mean, you've gotten Best of Ellie, and so 2 weeks ago, the first show that I didn't make, okay, I was at 2 events, and it was on October 11th, and one of those events was in the morning where I went and listened to a panel of diversity, equity, and inclusion professionals speak about the state of the industry, so to speak, or the profession. The DEI is under attack. And I've talked before about how my business has really gone down dramatically because people are afraid to bring Ellie Krug in to speak about human inclusivity and how good humans are. At any rate, I got depressed, okay? I mean, it was a depressing panel discussion. And then from there, I went to the National Coming Out Day luncheon. By the way, AM 950 was a sponsor of that luncheon, and there was a broadcast from there. Brett was there, and the whole guts of AM 950 was there. And it was a luncheon where they had a variety of speakers. But many of those speakers were talking about things that they were doing out in the community. And I sat there and I listened to them, and I thought to myself, Ellie, you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. And no, by the way, you're going to be 68 years old, and the time and the clock is running out for you to do anything. And so, so I got like the 1-2 whammy on Friday the 11th, and I'm driving back from Minneapolis feeling like crap. I really am. I'm like, geez, Elle, it's why, I mean, maybe it's you got to hang it. Maybe you got to hang it up. Maybe you just go off and retire into the good, eons, which I can't imagine. But at any rate, I get home, okay, feeling like crap. Open up, my email, Gmail, and there's an email from a woman who worked at an organization, we don't need to get into what it was, that I did not only gray area thinking, not only an allyship training, but I worked with the leadership of this organization for several months. But this was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago. And I have not heard from this woman ever since I stopped, working with this organization. I mean, we ended on good terms and all that stuff. In the email, the woman says, Ellie, I thought about you today. And she said, I just wanted to let you know that the work that you did with us 2 or 3 years ago, whatever it was really important. And the things that you shared with us, the things that you led us on, that you helped us to understand, still resonate with me and others in the organization today. I just want you to know that. Now, listeners, I got to tell you, okay, why, of all the time, all the days, all the hours, whatever, that email could come. Why does that show up in my email box at that time when I feel like I'm not accomplishing anything in this world? Why? The universe. I do. When my new book comes out, my second book, the second installment of my memoir, you're going to see in that book I talk about how the universe has spoken to me, has protected me, looked out for me on numerous occasions. And I just needed to share that story with you, okay? And it helped. It bolstered me. It did. That email nourished me. And it gave me some nutrients that I needed at that very moment to go on. It did. And so I'm just thankful for that woman to take the time, but how weird that it would show up then. Okay. All right. Now, as things stand right now, this is the last show that I'm going to do before the election. I'm going to talk to Brett and management to see if I can do a live show a week from today. We'll see. I don't know. But assuming I can't, okay, assuming this is the last time you hear from me before November 5th, take this away, will you? I urge you, obviously you're going to go vote, but I urge you, okay, to call up every 18, 19, 20, 21-year-old that you know, okay, and then call up the friends that you know that have 18, 19, 21-year-olds, okay, in their lives. And I urge you to call those young humans up and you tell them to get off their butt and go and vote. And steer them because they might have to wait in a line, okay? Get them prepared for that. But tell them go vote because I'm here to just tell you, we're not going to win unless they vote. It's not looking good. Okay, I'm trying to ignore all the polls, but we got to get the Gen Z out to vote for her. It's their best. This is about protecting everything for them. So will you do that for me? Will you go to them and get them out to vote? All right, I got to go. Big thanks to my producer, Brett Johnson, the best in the whole possible world. To you, my listeners, listen. Tell others about the show. Yes, it's unusual. Yes, she does these things. I hope you like it. I'd love to get the listenership up all the way, all right? And between now and whenever you hear my voice live ever again, okay, between now and then, all right, will you do me a favor? In addition to getting that vote out, will you go out and do something, small or big or whatever, to make the world a better place? Will you do that for me? Thank you. Ellie Krug, over and out.